There is a new Flyville 24 commit on today's episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. We're going to talk about why the Cardinals have found a diamond in the rough in three-star 2024 quarterback Deuce Adams. We'll also talk about Ellis entering the transfer portal and what the women's basketball team needs to address position-wise in the portal. With that being said, let's get right on into the show.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. As always, I want to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, the Locked On Louisville podcast is free on all streaming services 5 days a week, your team every day. As I mentioned, the Louisville football program has a new commit. We're going to talk about why new Flyville 24 commit Deuce Adams is a diamond in the rough in the 2024 class. We'll also discuss that while Ellis is entering the transfer portal, it was already expected that he likely wasn't going to be back on next year's team. And then to conclude the show, we'll talk about the current state of the women's basketball team's roster. What else does Jeff Walz need to address via the transfer portal, all coming up at the conclusion of today's show. We'll begin the episode on the football recruiting side of things. The Cardinals have had two commits in the Flyville 24 class for the past couple months. Isaac Brown was the first commitment. He actually pledged to the Cardinals during Scott Satterfield's tenure, but Jeff Walz noticeably got a commitment from five-star edge rusher TJ Capers back at the beginning of 2023. But since then, I wouldn't necessarily say it's been quiet for the program, because we've talked about how recruiting has not stopped. There's been additions via the transfer portal. There have been multiple players both taking official visits and unofficial visits to campus for spring ball and heading into the spring game later on this month. But no commitments in that time frame since the commitment of TJ Capers. Well, that streak has ended. 2024 quarterback Deuce Adams is a Louisville Cardinal. And I really do believe that he is a diamond in the rough prospect. Now, I don't want to sound cliche here, because I think it's almost second nature for, a member of insert fan base here claiming that insert recruit here is underrated and is better than a ranking suggests. I think it's probably second nature to suggest that, right? We said it a lot during Scott Satterfield's tenure, like, oh, look, there were a lot of players that were, not necessarily rated all that high, but we believe they're going to be better than, what they're ranked to be. Some end up panning out that way, some don't, and that's okay. But like I said, I don't want to throw that term diamond in the rough around recklessly. Like, I don't want to say, oh, he's a diamond in the rough prospect because he's a three-star player and Louisville's been, trying to get more 4 stars and even 5 stars. Look, I mean, it is what it is. I trust Jeff Walz scouting, especially at the quarterback position, but I think that this is an interesting situation. Deuce Adams currently ranked as the 829th best player in the 24/7 Sports Composite, 122nd best player in the state of Texas, 49th best quarterback in the class. A player that received a Louisville offer just a couple months ago. We had discussed his name, I think, back in January or maybe even February, as a player that Louisville had just reached out to. We mentioned that it might be tough to take him out of the state of Texas because it seemed like Baylor was coming on strong. I believe that his family, I think it's his father, played for Texas. A family member played for Texas. So if in-state teams wanted him to stay in-state, it was going to be hard to take him out of the Lone Star State. But here we are. The Louisville Cardinals get the pledge from Adams earlier on this week. And I do believe that If there are 48 better quarterbacks in this class, then we have a generational class that we are talking about in the 2024 recruiting class. I simply put, don't believe that there are 48 better quarterbacks in this class. Sure, I think that Deuce Adams isn't the perfect prospect, but I mean, who is? Is he a five-star caliber talent? Probably not. I mean, how many five-star quarterbacks are there in the country, right? I think that although he's not a five-star prospect, he's still, I mean, I would argue probably saying you're probably looking at the end of, probably the back half of the top 500. I think that he is probably, a top 30 quarterback in this class. When you watch him on film, what he's been able to do for Canyon High School in New Braunfels, Texas, the 6'2", 175-pound quarterback. I wouldn't go as far as saying that he's a true dual threat quarterback, but he's shown that he can make plays with his legs. Extremely solid pocket presence. I like his ability to get out on the run, being able to throw the football across his body, moving to his left. And I think that he has extremely solid touch on his deep ball accuracy passing, his ability to throw the ball downfield, not only with strength, but with precision and accuracy as well. That's something that really leads me to believe that the rankings might be a little bit lower than I would believe they are to be. Now, granted, I've said many times on this show that rankings, in my opinion, don't necessarily tell the full tale as an offer sheet would. But if you are looking to suggest that Adams is underrated, you're probably not going to look at the offer sheet either. Sure, he had offers from Baylor. Sean Bell was his primary recruiter down in Waco. Had offers from Boston College, who the Cardinals were competing up against. California offered, Hawaii. Outside of that, Washington State was the only other Power 5 team. The other offers come from schools like Incarnate Word, Sam Houston State, Texas Rio Grande Valley, Utah State, UTSA, so on and so forth. So you wonder, well, just how good is Deuce Adams if the ranking's not suggesting that he's all that great, that the offer sheet's not that solid either. How good actually is he? And that is something that needs to be focused on. But at the end of the day, I still think that the tape speaks for itself. Last season, 3,000 yards passing, 34 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, had 2 touchdowns on the ground, 290 yards, completed 216 of 323 passing. So he had that efficiency. Saw a solid jump from his sophomore to junior season. So I think that if he goes to camps this season or after this season, this summer, with a solid senior year of high school, I think that he could rise up rankings. Michael McCammon of 24/7 Sports Cardinal Authority site essentially, had an article that says QB commit Deuce Adams, a great fit for the Louisville offense. This is what Adams had to say in an interview. Just the way they treated me like I was already committed even when I wasn't. So I felt like if I committed, nothing will change, and they will still treat me how they treat me as a top priority in this class. The offense with the numbers it has put up in the past, I feel like I can be a great fit in this offense. Secondly, I built a great relationship with Coach Brian and Jeff Brom. I feel like I can do great things together. This is what Adams had to say about his skill set. Just smooth, just really sound mechanics. I won't try to be too flashy. I know my skill set. I know I can make moves outside the pocket and can make throws. I can throw inside the pocket as well. I think they saw that and that I can do a lot. He's had some interest, like I said, from Baylor, Boston College, Cal, Washington State, so on and so forth. But, I like this commitment here for Louisville. I think that this is a solid quarterback prospect. And look, I'm not going to question the quarterback recruiting and scouting of Jeff Brom and Brian Brom. If not only did you see what they're able to do in their playing days, that's a half of the battle, but also what they've been able to do coaching. How many quarterbacks at Purdue, how many quarterbacks have they had a ton of success with, that were lower rated guys like Elijah Sindelar, so on and so forth, a handful of different players. But I like this commitment here for Louisville. I think that Adams is a diamond in the rough prospect. I think that he's going to rise up the rankings a little bit. Like I said, he plays in such a talent-rich area down in Texas that it's like, okay, players can get overlooked a little bit, especially quarterbacks that are sort of late bloomers to the game, although that Adams has played significant varsity minutes or significant varsity snaps. We're not talking about basketball, talking about football. Significant varsity snaps for Canyon High School in New Braunfels, Texas. I just really like this commitment. I think that this is one that Louisville's going to be able to build off of. You continue to create some momentum in the Flyville 24 class. Now you have your signal caller, which, in my opinion, Louisville needs a quarterback in every single class. That's how you build competition. This is a solid addition to the program. So, but for the remainder of the show, we're going to talk a little basketball. Ellis entering the transfer portal officially. We'll talk about that, why people are upset, and more here in just a second after we talk about our friends and the title sponsor of the show, FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. You can bet on everything from money line to point scores, even threes drained. For me, my team's not going to make the playoffs. The Houston Rockets are one of the worst teams in the league, but Jabari Smith, Jalen Green have been balling out post All-Star break, and it's been fun to see what their player props have been on FanDuel. Like I said, it even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. Don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go FanDuel.com/LockedOn. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Cardinal fans, heading on into the second segment of the show, discussing a little basketball. Ellis officially entering the portal on Thursday afternoon. It was sort of an unexpected decision, although he had declared for the NBA draft that his main priority. There's no guarantee that he will be coming back to college, but if he were to come back to college, it likely won't be for Louisville. I believe that this is something that it was sort of unexpected to hear him enter the portal, but it was also expected that he likely wasn't going to be back at Louisville. I was expecting him to stay in the professional route, which he still may very well do. That's something to focus on here, is that it's still very, very real in terms of possibilities that he does not play another collegiate minute. And for his sake, I honestly hope that he's able to pursue that professional career, whether it be this summer or next summer. Wish him the best. One thing that has, for lack of better terms, pissed Louisville fans off is there was an interview back a couple months ago before the season ended, back in late February, that essentially said that if Ellis were to, this is L's own words, essentially paraphrasing here, that if he were to return to college, it would be for Louisville. Now, granted, entering the transfer portal likely means that he's not going to do that. That's what's made a lot of fans mad. Is it justified to be mad at that statement? I mean, you can be upset at that statement because, you're led to believe one thing and, something else happens. There was a tweet that was out from WHAS 11 reporter Tyler Griever that, paraphrasing here, obviously, basically said that after talking with Kenny Payne in the offseason, Ellis wasn't, thrilled with his role that Kenny Payne was proposing, something along those lines, and made the decision to enter the transfer portal. I don't know what went behind the scenes. There are some rumors that believe that another school out there has put together a solid NIL package for Ellis, and that's why he's entering the portal. I don't know why. If that's the case, then, that's what college basketball has turned into. We've seen it all across the country. Top players from top schools are going elsewhere because NIL has completely changed the game. That's neither here nor there right now, because I understand the frustration from Louisville fans. I get why people are pissed. And I think a lot of it is a byproduct of you just went 4-28. You had a solid start to the offseason with Dennis Evans, Sky Clark, and Trenton Flowers, but you missed out on Keon Minifield after many believed that he was going to come to Louisville. There's not been any traction on the Davion McKnight front. Caleb Love goes to Michigan. More players are, announcing visits elsewhere. You're not hearing a lot in the recruiting side of things for the Louisville Cardinals. And it's obvious that there's a ton of urgency. So I understand why Louisville fans are mad. I understand why Louisville fans are upset overall. But let me say this. If you've listened to the show, you know that I never like to tweet bad things out at recruits or players because I understand that these are humans too. I understand, sometimes criticism is warranted, but at the same time, I don't like the whole notion of tweeting bad things at recruits and players. I understand being upset that Ellis is leaving, but also, excuse me, gosh, I also think that as mad as you can be, we had been kind of preparing the show as if he wasn't going to come back, and a lot of people didn't expect Ellis to come back. I think it was the sheer possibility, and now it's set in stone that he's likely not going to be back. But I make this point. Despite being upset at all of the external factors right now, the lackluster season last year, I still don't like how upset people are with Ellis. Essentially saying, well, Louisville, it's better that he's gone. No, it's not. I'm sorry, but you cannot positively spin losing a guy who scored 18 points per game. You can make the case that, sure, shot selection wasn't the greatest. The usage isn't going to be as high at other places, but Louisville won 4 games. And how many do they win? Any of those games without Ellis? Ellis continually, without much consistent help from almost any other player scoring the basketball, 100% stayed locked in, came back after Chris Mack, and Louisville agreed to that buyout, came back, stayed committed, didn't enter the transfer portal when things got rough, stayed 10 toes down, and essentially gave his all. That's all there is to it. You can be upset, and I understand, him saying that, well, I'm not going to leave Louisville if I do, if I don't go to the draft, I'm not going anywhere else. I understand, and, there's probably some criticism to be warranted there, but at the end of the day, it's just a game. I don't understand why your day has to be ruined by a player entering the transfer portal. I understand it's not good news. I'm upset as anybody else is out there. Do you think that I like losing our top scorer to a possible other program? No, especially when we need guard help. I'm not condoning or I'm not saying that you shouldn't be upset. I'm saying that it's not serious enough to reach out and, call Ellis names on Twitter. It's not, it's not, and it's also definitely not the way to sit here and say that losing Ellis is the right thing for Louisville. No, it's not. And you would be foolish to say it is. It's not. You're not going to be able to positively spin losing your top scorer and one of the reasons you were in some games this season, especially when you desperately need productive guards for next season, already proven guys. Ellis is not going to be with the team. It was to be expected. I understand it hurts seeing that he entered the transfer portal, but it was likely that he wasn't going to be back anyway. So the fact of the matter is there's still that urgency, and this confirms that urgency that you have to go get proven guard play in the portal. You have 3 scholarships. If one of those scholarships is used on Churchill Abas from the NBA Academy in Africa, that's fine. He's a solid player, but you need to go out and get guard play after that. The Cardinals have reached out to Gonzaga transfer Hunter Salas. We'll talk about him on a future episode of the show. But right now, there's not a lot of names that Louisville has been rumored with that are currently in the portal that haven't gone elsewhere. But I'll say this. Ellis has been unapologetically all about Louisville since he got here. I want to thank him for his seasons, for his production, for his unwavering support and solid play through his seasons here before entering the transfer portal. Wish him the best of luck. El is a friend of mine. I will say that. So you can say, well, you're just not talking bad about your friend on your podcast. And maybe so. But El is a really good dude. He is a guy that put this city and this team on his back and did all he could for this team. So wish him the best of luck. He's going to be a professional one day, and we'll always support him. But nonetheless, very much urgent situation here for Louisville to address guard play. So we'll talk about that on a future episode. To conclude the show, we're going to discuss women's basketball portal recruiting. The Cardinals, after adding Jada Curry, still have some needs. We'll talk about what those are here in just a second. Before we do that, I want to thank you all again for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, the Locked On Louisville podcast is free on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. So heading on into the final segment of the show, the Cardinals adding Jada Curry from the transfer portal from California. Still a ton of spots to fill. The most recent portal movement, Amani Lester, freshman post player that had to medically redshirt this season, has entered the portal. So almost, I think, all but one of the true freshman class has entered the portal. Nyla Harris will be returning. So let's look at the returners as of right now. Nyla Harris, Alexia Mobley, Haley Van Lith, Marissa Russell, Olivia Cochran that makes 5. And then you have 2 transfers in, Lily Love from Georgia Tech, who transferred in a couple months ago, and now Jada Curry. So you have 7 scholarship players. There is a chance that you may see Jeff Walz not address all of the scholarships or fill all of the scholarships, but it looks like Louisville is still going to add anywhere from 3 to 5 more players. When you look at the possible starting lineup for next season, obviously Jada Curry, Haley Van Lith are the starting members of the backcourt. And I've seen the rumors that Haley Van Lith has taken all of the Louisville mentions out of her Twitter and Instagram bios. Look, I understand, it's portal season. Players are entering the portal. There's some fear that she would enter the portal. But at this point in time, from people that I've talked to, that doesn't seem to be the case. If there is a concern, I'll let you know. Obviously, things are fluid with the portal, so things can change. But as at this point in time, I'm operating under the assumption that Haley Van Lith is a Cardinal for her senior season. So Jada Curry, Haley Van Lith, the starting backcourt for the Cardinals. Olivia Cochran will start in the front court. And then as of right now, your other starting players are essentially Nyla Harris and Lily Love from Georgia Tech with the transfers with Alexia Mobley and why can't I remember Marissa Russell coming off the bench, or maybe Marissa Russell starts and Lily Love comes off the bench. But as of right now, 7 players. What is needed for the Cardinals? I think a couple things to focus on. I think that, you want to add another guard via the portal. You lost some solid guard play. You lost Chrislyn Carr, Morgan Jones, Mikasa Robinson. You lost a lot of the freshman players. I would assume that Narika Kono is not going to be back, but if she is, that takes away some of the guard need. But right now you need a player off the bench at the guard position to fill some of those minutes so you don't have to rely too much on Curry and Haley Van Lith. But the biggest needs for the Cardinals outside of, rotational guard play is two things. I think you need solid rim protection. You need to go out and get rim protection and post presence. Olivia Cochran is a solid player. She's a double-digit scorer. She's going to be a player that is going to be one of the best front court players in the ACC next season. However, she is not a true rim protector. You need to go out and you need to replace Liz Dixon and Josie Williams. Louisville really hasn't had a true rim protector since Kylie Shook left, and I think that that's no slight to Liz Dixon. She gave some solid production over her seasons at Louisville, but not only do you have to replace her, you still have to add some post presence and some shot blocking abilities as well. That's something that Louisville has been missing in the NCAA tournament over the past couple seasons. When you look at how they've lost, obviously 2021 to Stanford, lack of size. South Carolina, lack of size. Iowa, you ran into the buzzsaw that was Caitlin Clark and the Hawkeyes shooting ability. So, but also rebounding was a tough issue there for the Cardinals. So adding that post presence would be solid for Louisville. I also think that you can look to just honestly best player available wouldn't be too hard to look at here when you need to add more players via the portal. I think an athletic wing that can drive to the basket and create on the floor. I think Marissa Russell can fill that role, but you can never ask for too much of that role. When Elizabeth Balagoon left, the Cardinals lost a little bit of that. Obviously, you brought in Emily Ingsler, which was solid. When you lost Ingsler, you assumed that Morgan Jones was going to fill that role, and she had sort of an up-and-down 2022-23 campaign. So Louisville's, I think, biggest needs in the portal, number one, it's post presence / rim protector. Number two, it's an athletic wing, two-way wing that can knock down the deep ball, but also, get to the rim as well. And number three, it's a rotational guard play. So if you were to look at, let's say Louisville adds 4 more players onto this team, it's, I would probably say 2 players, 2, possible centers, a forward, a wing, obviously, and a backup guard. So that would be my focus. We're going to obviously hear some more news from the portal, hopefully soon, from Jeff Walz' program. But that's going to wrap up today's episode of the show. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you right back here very soon.